So let's kick off this watch party. Current head coach Andrew Baxter from Fairfield joining us now. Coach, we appreciate you taking some time. I know the fall is getting you got the fall stuff out of the way, so we're going to have some fun, watch some games here over the next couple hours.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Travis. Really appreciate your guys' coverage and doing this for the CAA teams. Appreciate it.
So we got a couple of games that you've had a chance to coach in here over the last couple of years that we're going to be watching here. And one of them is from the 2020 season. And I was looking back at some of these games for 2020. Your offense had it clicking early on before the pandemic ended up stopping everything. What do you remember about that group through 7 games where you guys were scoring 17, 18, 19 goals in a couple of these games?
Yeah, totally. Well, I do remember the first couple games, including that Quinnipiac game where we went down, I think, in that game 4-1, if not 5-1, something like that. And the first game of the season against Stony Brook, we went down 5-1, I think, in the first couple minutes. I think it was just a matter of shaking off some of the nerves and that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think that was purposeful in terms of the style that we wanted to bring to the field and playing faster and getting up and down and putting up a lot of points. So yeah, those games were a lot of fun to coach in outside of the first couple minutes when we were down. Yeah, I was a little disappointed that season got cut short because I would have liked to see what that team could have done in the league and that kind of thing. But yeah, there were some fun games that year.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it's, you walk in on campus, it's your first year, and to have those kind of results, it has to help what you're like preaching in terms of, hey, we want to get up and down, and you guys are scoring a bunch of goals, so it has to help the buy-in. Am I right there?
Yeah, absolutely. There was definitely an excitement level to that team and kind of the new style that we were playing and, getting up and down and giving these guys a little bit more freedom, I think, than they had maybe in the past, at least offensively, kind of in between the lines. So, yeah, we had a lot of fun with that group.
I know there's a lot of like what ifs about that season. I think everybody in the country has some. Like, do you ever think about like the what ifs of what that group could have been? Because we're going to talk to Taylor Stroud here in a little bit, and he was part of that team. He's like, we just felt like we really came together early on there. Like, do you think about some of the what ifs in that year?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's tough to say, but I do. I would have liked to have a crack at some of the league games that year, just to kind of see how we matched up, and especially with that team, the way that we were playing, and like Taylor said, kind of the way that team was coming together that season. Felt like we could have made some noise, but you never know. But yeah, like I said, it was those 7 games that we did get in were a lot of fun.
So obviously it's been a roller coaster for you since you've taken over this program, because you mentioned your first year is 2020. You get 7 games to this group, things shut down, and then all of the uncertainties really of the last couple of seasons we've had here in college lacrosse. How have you kind of looked at this first couple of years as a head coach for you, and how it's kind of done one of these throughout the time?
Yeah. I talk about it probably almost daily with, especially with recruits when we have them in the office, just trying to give them a little background of kind of the dynamic of our team and kind of what we've been through as a program. And yeah, it's been challenging. I think the first year obviously that we just talked about was disappointing because we felt like we had something going there, and then the second year I think was frustrating on a lot of different fronts, just with that being the toughest year with time constraints and the challenges that COVID presented, I think, to every team across the country, and I think we were hit especially hard just because it was the second year and we were still trying to incorporate and instill some standards and some expectations. And we just didn't have a lot of time to do any of that. We lacked, connectivity time with the players and the coaches. So we suffered a little bit that second year, I think. And I think we had a relatively talented team and a good group. It just we weren't able to show that, based on some of those adversities that we had up against us. But so yeah, it's definitely been a roller coaster. And then year 3 last year, it felt in a lot of ways kind of like a year 1 because it was the first full year that I've had, So it was year 3, but it was the only year that I had a full fall and a full spring with a group of guys, so that ended up being a lot of fun. We had some ups and downs obviously last year. But we feel like we're making some good strides for sure. But yeah, roller coaster. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's crazy to think about that. Like, it took you to year 3 to have a normal season, but that's the world we've been living in.
Crazy. Yeah, absolutely challenging. And I think the guys that have been in the locker room now for all those years we have this shared bond of this shared adversity that we've all gone through, and it's kind of brought us a lot closer.
So let's talk about this past season, because one of the games we have coming up here in a little bit, actually the first game that's going to kick things off is your game from this past year against Hofstra. It kicks off CAA play, and for you guys, it becomes your first CAA win in what had been 16 games for the program. For you, your first CAA win, period, with this program. What did that moment and that game mean for you guys?
Yeah, it was. We try to do our best to treat every game at Fairfield as the biggest. The next, we always say the next game is it's a big game because it's the next one. But that win definitely, I think, helped with guys' confidence to know that we could compete within our league, especially from the year before where we didn't have any league wins. And we definitely needed that confidence boost and that understanding that we could play with anyone in our league and then anyone in the country. So yeah, that was a great moment for sure. It's I have a hard time highlighting specific games, but that one definitely stuck out, for those reasons that you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, I have to think too, because I remember doing games from 2021 down the stretch, and you guys have close calls where you're in back and forth battles down the stretch in CAA games, but you can't quite get over the hump and finish one off. So I have to feel like it's almost like maybe for some of the veterans too had been through it, takes some of the edge or the pressure off down the stretch. You don't grip quite as tight because you're like, all right, we got one.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That definitely helped. Yeah. Get it off the back almost, yeah, I remember I was looking at the box score this morning of that game, kind of recalling some of the plays in my head. And it definitely was a game where, I was looking at the box score, like I said, we were down in the fourth quarter. So to your point, I think the year before we had some great first halves into the third quarter and then just weren't able to close out any games the year before. So, I think it was a great sign of our mental toughness had come a long way, from the past couple of years in order to close out a game like that.
Just overall, in your first couple of years as head coach, what do you feel like is the culture that you've established there at Fairfield, and what do you still look to build on, because it's still relatively early on in your coaching stint there with the Stags?
Yeah, totally. I think our core principles here, Travis, are relentless effort, selfless commitment, and joy. So we want to, we're gonna work hard. We're gonna push these guys, but we're gonna have a lot of fun doing it. And we try to do that through the way that we play. I think if you watch us play, hopefully you can get a sense of that, those principles in the way that we play. And we try to take a lot of pride in caring for each other. And so that's been kind of the day-to-day in terms of the culture piece, talking about those three principles and incorporating them every day and talking about them and defining them and giving these guys examples of that. And then I think it's a very we're a very process oriented program, right? So we try not to think about we talk about our goals, but we try not to think about the outcomes as much as kind of the day to day and worrying about what we have to do the next day in order to get a little bit better, and so those are some of the things that we try to work on over the past 3 years, and that's tough. And I think I was having a cultural conversation with someone on campus yesterday about installing a culture, and I think the hardest thing for kids that are 18, 19, 20 years old is the fear of the unknown, right? So it's like, you can tell them, hey, A, B, and C is gonna help you, but at the end of the day, it still might not be good enough, and you just have to overcome that fear of the unknown, And I think that's something that is a good conversation to have with young people, but it's a hard one for them to fully grasp. But when they do, the light goes off, and that's when you see real success.
Well, no fear of the unknown here. You got wins all throughout the day here on our watch party. So no worries about that for the Fairfield fans and the players. Coach, we appreciate you taking some time. Can't wait to see you guys again this spring.
I appreciate it, Travis. Thanks for having me.